The struggle for civil rights in the United States saw the rise of two prominent leaders, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, whose approaches to achieving equality were radically different. King advocated for nonviolence and integration within American society, while Malcolm X was closely associated with the Nation of Islam, which embraced Black Muslim nationalism and self-reliance. Martin Luther King Jr. was deeply influenced by the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi and his Christian faith. He believed that peaceful protests and legal action were the most effective means of achieving equality and justice. He wanted to awaken the moral conscience of the oppressor. King's vision for racial equality was centered on the idea of integration. He sought an integrated society where African Americans and whites could live together in harmony. King's leadership of major events, such as the Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington, showcased his philosophy. In contrast to King's philosophy, Malcolm X initially embraced Black Muslim nationalism, self-reliance, and self-defense. Born Malcolm Little, he joined the Nation of Islam, a religious and political organization led by Elijah Muhammad. Under the influence of the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X rejected integration and instead advocated for a separate identity for African Americans, free from white domination. He viewed the American system as racist and believed that African Americans would never be treated equally in a society built on racial oppression. Malcolm X was famous for his slogan, "By any means necessary," which reflected his belief that African Americans had the right to defend themselves against racial violence, even if it meant using force. While he did not advocate for violence as a first resort, he argued that self-defense was a fundamental human right. Unlike King, Malcolm X believed that African Americans should build their own institutions, businesses, and communities, independent of white society. Malcolm X's ideology of Black empowerment was grounded in a sense of pride, self-respect, and dignity. He sought to encourage African Americans to recognize their worth and to demand their rights, rather than beg for them. His views on race and separation evolved over time, particularly after his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1964, where he encountered Muslims of all races and recognized the possibility of unity across racial lines. However, during the majority of his advocacy, Malcolm X remained focused on Black self-determination. The Nation of Islam, led by Elijah Muhammad, was a major influence on Malcolm X's early advocacy. The Nation of Islam combined Black nationalism and Islam, advocating for the establishment of an independent Black state. The organization also promoted the idea of Black self-sufficiency and the rejection of white institutions. The NOI advocated for the creation of separate institutions, including schools and businesses. The group rejected Christianity, teaching that African Americans should embrace Islam, which they believed was the truth. The nation's rhetoric was militant, calling for a radical transformation and challenging the legitimacy of the U.S. itself. Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam in 1964, following growing tensions with Elijah Muhammad. However, he remained a devoted Muslim. He completed his pilgrimage to Mecca, and his views on race and separatism began to moderate. He began to advocate for a broader, more inclusive vision of unity among all people, regardless of race, although he still emphasized Black pride and empowerment.